Let's open the Sheffield Selectboard meeting tonight. I'd like to start with offering our condolences to Susan Young, who passed away at 84. And now we'll start with the agenda. Approval of meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of December 18th.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Update from town clerk regarding elections. Phyllis?
I'm going to try and do this quickly, but
Take
somewhat
your time.
effectively, I guess.
We're in no rush.
Well, there's a lot of information this time of year. I think what I'm going to try and do is narrow it down to the presidential primary, which seems like it's a long ways off, but it indeed will be here quickly. So Tuesday, March 5th, is the presidential primary. Surrounding that event, we have a registration deadline, which will take place on Saturday. They've changed our deadline a little bit, so Saturday, February 24th will be the last date to register or change your party affiliation, which is going to be really important as well. We will be available from 9 to 4 that day in the clerk's office, and in addition to that, early voting in person begins that day, and that will run through the course of the week. We being closed on Friday, we will offer early in-person voting on Saturday, the 24th. We'll be closed on Sunday, and then Monday through Thursday of the week leading up to the primary, we will be available during regular business hours. So there will be ample opportunities to vote. With that said, and I don't really know if, there's information on here that I can't disclose, but the I Want to Vote cards went in the mail from the Secretary of State's office, and they are arriving at everyone's doorsteps and mailboxes this week. There are two different versions. One of them is for unenrolled voters. So if you are unenrolled, you will be asked to choose your party affiliation for at least this primary, possibly the next. You have the option of checking off all elections this year, but you have to make sure that the primaries, you've indicated your party choice, or you will not be getting a ballot unless we have time to follow up with you. We will do our best if we see an error. We've received 7 cards today, and 3 of them had errors. So if it's any indication how the season's going to go, I really need voters to step up and read carefully the cards that they're receiving. If they have any questions, we're here, we're available. I'd rather they call than have issues when it comes to voting. If you are locked into a party, you will not have the option of choosing what ballot. And if you think that you are enrolled in an incorrect party, you need to let us know. We have automatic voter registration now. So if you go to an agency, Registry of Motor Vehicles, health insurance, AAA, any of those, you're automatically registered to vote. They will register you as unenrolled. If you go to the RMV to renew your driver's license, you will be registered as unenrolled. So we really need, and we send letters, by the way, acknowledgement notices to any voters, to any change to their voter registration. If you have an issue, you need to call us. The deadline has to be met for registration to make those changes, or you're locked into whatever you're locked into. With that said, census forms have also gone out. So they went out 2 weeks ago. If we have residents that have not received one yet, you need to reach out to us because there could be a reason. We have a lot of people that did not update addresses. We just got a whole box returned to us today. It's really, really important. There are no forwardings on these census forms. This is the way that we have to do it with the state, and it goes by household. So mine, for instance, goes to the Joyce household. Which Joyce, we might not know. So we count on the address, an accurate address, to have those forms reach everyone. And we got quite a few back today, and I expect the next week will probably, it's very costly with postage and manpower, and we have a lot of people that have left the area, have maybe made a lateral move within town. regardless of that, we need people to step up. Those census forms are a really valuable tool for us to change our information and update. We also have people that issue a lot of cell phone numbers to us. They're not published publicly, but if we need to reach you as a voter, and you have a track phone, for instance, and there is a lapse and you have a new number, we don't know how to reach you. So I think that is probably it. Things are very fluid with the Secretary of State's office as far as changes. Sometimes we don't have a lot of time to plan, and they just tell us you have a training and this is what it's going to be about. And, you know, we also have, which I'm not as familiar with because it's new, there's an online portal for ADA compliance. So handicapped voters can make an application through a portal through the Secretary of State's office. We will be monitoring that pretty closely daily once that goes into effect. And they can request ballots and receive ballots electronically that way. So that's something I would prefer that people give us a call on, because we're still learning as we go with that. I am anyway. I'll be doing that. So I think that's it. The only other thing that I am going to put a plug in for dog licensing. Everybody that has a dog needs to get in here and get that dog license, because as of May 1st, if it is a renewal, there will be a $25 fine per dog, no exemptions. So we need current rabies information and the funds to cover it. And that can be done on the town's website, it can be done in person, it can be done through the Dropbox, it can be done by mail. No less than 4 opportunities or venues to pay for your dog's licensing. And everyone that has a dog, and if you have dogs and they are not licensed, we know who some of you are, we'll be calling you. So it's a safety issue as well. They're required to have a rabies vaccine. It's for the safety of the animal, other animals, people. So I think that's all I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Pittman.
If you're registered, can you still go in at that time and, you know, pick your different parties?
So if you have a U next to your name, that means you're registered as unenrolled, which is kind of a wild card. And on primary day, I probably should have mentioned that, if you're unenrolled, you will come in. We have 3 ballots that will be available, the Democratic, Republican, and Libertarian ballots. And you'll have to choose one of those. You will retain your unenrolled status after the election. You don't have to make any changes or fill out a new card.
You have to go at the end and go back?
You do not have to do that any
Not
longer.
anymore?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
I'm sorry?
How much is a dog license?
$5 for neutered or spayed, $10 if they are intact. That's it. I think we're good.
You
Have a good night.
question?
Thanks.
I was just giving my advice.
Very good.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Okay, moving on. An appointment announcement for the Cultural Council. So we have a request from Wanda Houston. So we will take this up at our next regularly scheduled meeting for an appointment, so.
May I just ask Rhonda, I know we just appointed 3 new people.
According to the state, I believe they can have around 20.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No more applications for Cultural Council. We've got seats on other boards.
Obviously, the Cultural Council is a more attractive board than some of our other ones.
You
Okay.
get to give out money. It's
Yeah.
always a fun thing to do, and look at all the people who are deserving.
Okay, so the next one is Renee's discussion, possible action regarding electric vehicle charging stations.
Okay, so when we last left this, we were unhappy, at least I was, with the contract or the documents to proceed that Livingston Energy Group had sent us. So I went back, and I'm pleased to announce that I took Rhonda's suggestion and took one of the people off of the lead EV charging station installers on the national grid list, World Energy Efficiency Services. They're in Worcester, Mass, extremely responsive, really seem to know their stuff. They are planning, and I would expect that Pat would probably want to be involved. They are planning on coming out this Thursday, the 18th at 10 a.m. to review the 2 sites. And then they will give us some information. Then they will, and that may be a letter of intent, but eventually we'll get our letter of intent, not that contract language is at the bottom of the other one, that the board will be able to review, and then they will go back and do the rest of the work with National Grid and et cetera. And then if we want to go any further, there will be a formal contract. So they work both with the state's incentive program as well as National Grid's. I feel much more comfortable with this group. There isn't the push to get us to do something without them even coming out here. So we'll be looking at the 2 sites. They'll look at what the electrical connections are, and I know where Rhonda wants this one put for Town Hall, and we'll go for there. So it is moving forward, and I would hope that at the February meeting, I'll have something for you further.
Great.
Excellent.
Okay?
Okay, discussion and possible action regarding removal of the building at 1739 Ewing Street. So we have some cost estimates as to what it will cost to remove the asbestos and hazardous materials. Rhonda, would you like to fill in the blanks?
Right, so we own that property. Well, we voted to purchase the property. We will own it on February 7th. That's when the closing is scheduled. And we all know there's a dilapidated house on the property that has asbestos. So we need to have someone there to perform testing as well as someone there to remove it. So by remove it, I mean cart it away. Wilkinson's is under contract to do the work to pick up the house and put it into these specialized lined dumpsters. We think the job can be completed in 1 day, but there's a possibility that they'll need part of a second day. So you're looking at a cost of around $30,000 total between the testing person that's there and then the company that's going to cart it away, and then the contractor who's going to take it down.
It's about $10,000 less than I was expecting.
So if it looks like, again, going with 10,000, if it's 1 day,
Yeah.
it's 10,000 less than if it's 2 days.
Correct. So, we could luck out, but it's better to go on the 2-day schedule and just be pleasantly surprised when it's one.
Excellent. Do we need a motion for this?
You do.
We do.
Where are you looking to have the money come from?
I'm not sure yet. There's a couple places it could come from. Berkshire School. You could vote to use ARPA. Buildings and Grounds would not be a good place for that. There was the highway article that was approved many years ago that we're using for the design, but I'm a little reluctant to use that one, so maybe between Berkshire and ARPA funds.
So I would make a motion that we authorize a maximum of $30,000 for the removal of the asbestos building on Huron Street, and that we authorize our town administrator to decide how that money will be taken from either ARPA and/or Berkshire School funds.
Maybe we'll do both a little bit.
Yeah, that's, my motion is meant to make it so that you can take
I'll second that
something.
motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion, possible action regarding Community Preservation Act.
So we talked about this at our last meeting, and I went back and did some more work like I told you I would. So what I wanted to do tonight, and again, what we're talking about is the select board approving putting it on the town meeting warrant. And if the voters approve that, the motion would be to put it on the November ballot. So nobody's approving the CPA at town meeting. They're if they do so, approving to put it on the warrant that would take place during the presidential election in November, where I think there'd be a much larger turnout of voters than a regular off-year election. So I think more voters will have an opportunity to weigh in on this. So what I did is I just started off with exemptions. And we talked a little bit about this before, but the low to moderate is designed specifically for seniors 60 and older. When you look at the income, it does not include assets per se, it's income, okay? And both this and the next one, which is the low income, which is available for non-seniors, again, it's the same way. In both cases, it has to be owner occupied, and you can see how the income goes from 1 person to 8 persons. If we need more than that, we can get it. This income is updated annually. We're in the Pittsfield census designation, and this type of exemption needs to be filed each year. It's a relatively straightforward form. Talking with the CPA coalition who helps communities with this, they have found that overall, in most communities, many people do not file for the exemptions that they're entitled to because the CPA tax, when it's all sorted out as a yearly tax, it may not be worth, filing for. So that's the 2 income exemptions: low to moderate income for seniors and low income for everybody else who qualifies. The next exemption is a $100,000 exemption to the assessed property value right off the top. So it would apply, if adopted in November, if it goes on the ballot, to residential property. And also we have Class 3 and Class 4 properties, so it could be extended to them. So in effect, there's 4 exemptions that are available. So let me, before I go any further, any questions on that?
No.
You good? Okay, all right. The next thing I wanted to do is, again, want to let you know that every tax exemption that's in place is, we have the senior work-off, veterans, blind, is taken off or are taken off before the town CPA surcharge is applied. So you take off those exemptions, and then if town voters adopted the CPA, in which they have to say which exemptions they approve, those would come off, and then what's left is what the surcharge would be applied to, and that's the tax amount, not the assessed tax amount, not the property value. So also, most tax software today either has a built-in CPA module or it's available for purchase. I have not had that conversation with Tammy. So I also just laid out a time frame for you so you can see if this happens and this and this and this and this and this. So the key is it on the ballot? If approved on the ballot, it goes, the warrant, if it's approved, it goes to the ballot in November. The other thing I did, since the previous figures I gave you only went to 500,000, I expanded the figures. So I went out to $1 million, and I took the 23 property tax, and I took the property tax that we just approved a couple of weeks ago, which was a very small increase. So I figured both of them for you, for us, and then I went ahead and said, okay, so if you're, after exemptions, etc., if your house is assessed at $500,000 and it was a 1.5% surcharge, this year 23, which we know we can't deal with, your tax for the year would be $86. Okay. And this is no exemptions applied. For fiscal year '24, based on what we adopted, it would be 89. And that's the tax for the entire year, and that's at 1.5. But I worked it out to 3, so you can, see all the numbers. And then on the back, I went ahead and, a lot of this stuff is available through the CPA Coalition. I did a draft. This would have to be approved by legal, obviously. A draft warrant article for our May annual town meeting. I left the surcharge, obviously, empty because nobody has decided that on this board. And then if that were to pass, I put would then be, to me, the second warrant article is to let the people decide what they might want to consider to put on the ballot for exemptions. I thought it would just be too much to put it into one warrant article. Okay. And of course, if the first warrant article doesn't pass, there's no sense talking about the second one. Mm-hmm. And then there would be the ballot in November. From a timeline, I also, this I had to really work on because it was hard for me to understand. If it was approved on the November 24th town ballot, the surcharge collection would begin at the start of fiscal year '26, or July 1, 2025. It would be collected for a whole year. In November of '26, which is now into fiscal year '27, we would know what the state's match would be, and we would receive that money. And then every year thereafter, the taxes are collected for a fiscal year. In November, they tell us what that would be. We get the money. We collect for a year, because if they don't have the collections, they don't know what they're giving. Okay? So.
I have a couple questions.
Good.
The first question I have is, have you done any calculations based on our current assessment, what we might possibly raise if we weren't looking at any exemptions?
That was in the last packet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will, let me see if I brought that.
I can go back and look at it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it there.
No, it was, just hold on, I've got my packet here. The people at, they did that. Oh God, just a minute. If there were no exemptions, let's just pick 1.5%. Okay, they estimated there'd be 120,278. I can make you a copy of this.
No, that's fine. I just was,
okay.
So it's roughly 120 grand.
Yeah.
Without exemptions, it'll be less with exemptions.
Yes, yes.
So my second question is, I just want to make sure I understand how the surcharge is applied.
Yes.
So my house is worth 300,000. My property tax bill is, let's just round up to 3,500.
Yes.
I am receiving the senior tax work-off program of 1,500.
That
so
will be removed.
My net bill is $2,000.
Yes.
So my 1% tax would be $20
Yep.
for the year.
For the year.
Okay.
1.5
I just
would be
wanted to make
30.
sure.
You got
because
it.
somebody's going to ask me, and I want to
Yeah,
be able to back into the numbers
Yeah.
and understand how
No,
the
you've got
math
it.
works.
You've netted it out perfectly.
And then my last question has to do with what is the time and the demand on the staff to do this?
Well,
Because it's a separate building, or is it part of it must be a separate building.
my understanding is, and there's actually brochures, and I could mock up a brochure that the tax collector would send out. Okay, that's, it tells you exemptions, and then I could do, because people have been doing this, 196 communities have been doing this for a long time. Again, I would be more than happy to talk with tax collectors. I didn't know if I should go that far in the 6 or 7 towns in Berkshire County that do this, okay, and see what the job is, as well as the assessors. The other thing is, I was told by the CPA Coalition, and I have no reason not to believe it, that CPA modules are available, if not already built in, to leading assessment software. But I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to, is it a separate billing? It's not a separate
I'm
billing.
assuming it would be right on the tax bill.
Right on the
just in
tax
one
bill.
of the
And it
other
would be
little
broken out
boxes.
over the quarters.
I think it would be impossible, it makes no sense in my mind to do a separate billing,
Right, there would be
because
no
then we'd be so confused as to what we're doing.
Now, would this add to both Tammy's and Monique's offices, the tax collector and the assessor's workload?
Well,
I think once it's in,
yeah,
then the input.
the software's going to take care of
The
it.
software will.
But I didn't check with Tammy to make sure. I really wanted to see where the board was, because there's no sense in going down and letting people know they may have some more work if this board is not, supportive of giving the voters a right to view, to do this. I did ask Tammy and found out that we did have Class 3 and Class 4, so we do have industrial and commercial properties.
So the workload is going to be for those people who file for the exemptions, because that's going to have to be built into the overall calculations.
Yes, and I've looked at, and again, I can bring one into the next meeting. I've looked at the exemption forms that a person has to fill out. Basically, what they have to do is verify their income. And you have to do that for the senior workoff program, I believe, and I think I don't know if you have to do that for anything else. I know if anybody's applying for the CDBG, home rehabilitation, everybody wants to know that everybody's income is what they say it is.
Yeah.
These amounts are, to me, pretty generous, given what I would expect a lot of people in Sheffield have as incomes.
And a lot of us don't have that much for income, just to be very clear that some of us are not making 70 grand a year as a retired person.
Yeah, I do think that people who need to be protected would be protected under this program. It's, this is HUD. These numbers are much more generous than I thought they would be.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
I
know
just
how else
have,
to say it.
that spurred one more question for me. I'm sorry, Bob.
That's
You
okay.
probably have 5 or 6 questions too.
No,
but-
you've already asked
Oh,
a
good.
couple of the ones, and I'm more than happy to allow you.
So let's just say we say yes, the voters say yes, and we raise $100,000, and it goes into what account? And who has control over the spending? Because then the state match is going to come in, or
Right.
whatever they're going to match or is going to come
Right.
in. So how does the spending of the money get controlled? Is it
Okay,
the select
so,
board?
First of all, no. First of all, you can opt out in 5 years. So if it doesn't work, you can increase it, but you can also opt out. We don't want to do this anymore. That takes a vote, but you can opt out. The way this is set up, this goes into a special account, okay? And we talked about at the last meeting, the Community Preservation Committee, which has mandatory people on it, of which we only have a few. One is, do you remember?
Thank you,
that?
it's coming back to me.
Okay.
But there's new people in the audience tonight.
Yes, one of those people is from the Conservation Commission. One of those people is from the Housing Commission. Excuse me, I'm sorry, the Historical Commission. We do not have a housing, let me just think of, it's like a housing trust or a housing. Our housing commission may or may not apply, though the state wants to see something close to someone who's involved in housing. Okay. The other, it can have up to a certain number of members. The other members, and this has to be approved by the state, the membership, the category of membership, like Conservation Commission. It can be elected members. There can be some members that are appointed by the select board. They suggest not getting into how the committee is going to be organized, other than what they have set out as kind of the guidelines until the ballot measure has either passed or failed. Because you got to collect money for a year. All right, there's time to sort that out. And the committee However, whoever ends up getting on it, some people, they've said, there's a really good guy who's kind of the educator on this, that sometimes people on conservation commissions or the committees that are supposed to be on it, they don't want to get involved. Other times, there's people who are running, you have 3 or 4 people running to be on the committee. But that's in the previous packet, Nadine.
Okay.
If you want me to look back.
No, I'll go back and look
Okay.
it, I'll go back and look it over again.
And also, the money that goes into the Community Preservation Act, the projects that are decided upon by this committee, the price of the project has to be known when it goes to town meeting, and it has to be approved by town voters. So it's not a situation.
So the spending is still approved by the voters?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the really
I'm
answer.
sorry,
That's fine, that's the answer I was looking for.
And
I
you
just
don't
wanted
have
to
to
know who was spending the money.
Yeah, you don't have to spend everything at one time.
Right.
A lot of communities save it up. You have to spend a certain amount, 10% here. They want to make sure that you're not just doing one thing.
Okay.
But the voters have to approve every single expenditure and project that the committee recommends.
Okay.
Bob?
I have no more questions as far as, everything has been pretty much answered.
I want to go back and look things over before we take a vote on this.
Okay.
I want to really have a,
If you don't have this packet.
oh, I'm
I'll
sure,
make it-
I'm sure it's in my
I'll give it to you.
pile of stuff
Okay.
at
All
home.
right. So I'm going to just let you know that unless there's something serious that comes up in our discussions, which I'd like to have this on the next agenda, and unless there's something really serious that comes up, and maybe people could let Rhonda know that so I could investigate it, I will probably make a motion on putting it on the warrant to see if people want to put it on the ballot at the next meeting.
Okay.
Is that fair?
I'll try to be ready.
Okay. I don't know if you want to ask anybody if there's questions from the public.
Is there any
or-
questions from the public on this? Anybody?
Oh, good.
Seeing not, we'll move to the next agenda item. Okay, discussion and approval of the DLTA grant application.
So I think this is mine too, if
Yes,
you want
it
me to
is.
handle it. So we met with the planning board, the select board had already approved this. We met with the planning board. We got a letter back, a little note back from Sari, which I think I passed on to Rhonda, I hope I did, that the planning board was in favor of this. So what we need to do is, I make a motion that we authorize our chair to sign it and we get it submitted.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, discussion, action regarding letter to the EPA rail transport for rest of river.
Okay.
You've got a lot of them
I
tonight.
got a lot of them. It was a busy week. So, just going back, we all know that since the settlement agreement and the permit was upheld to clean up the rest of river, Housatonic PCBs, we know that GE has been putting out plan after plan after plan after plan. These plans are subject to public comment, and the EPA has provided technical assistance to the 5 Rest River communities and Pittsfield. So I included the document from SKIO, who is the provider of this assistance, and I will be on a conference call with them Thursday just to see what else I might have missed. But I've read through it, and basically I've developed a letter that paraphrases their major points. Every single point is included in here. I've also included my work on the Rest of River Municipal Committee for 10 plus years, and my awareness of the settlement agreement. So I don't expect anybody to say anything about this tonight, because I just got it to you. I'm sorry, it took a lot of time to write. And I would hope that...
I didn't have time to review it
No,
in
it's a
great
long
detail
letter,
today.
and, it's more technical than most of us want to get into, okay? But I would like to, I just wanted to put it on the record, and it needs to be submitted by February 1st, so I'm hoping that at our next working meeting, next Thursday, we can take this up, because it doesn't matter, anybody can talk about this, but if they don't submit their comments to the EPA at the email address, it's like nothing's been done. All the letters to the editor, everything, they got to go into this email address, or...
So this attached portion, was
Is
this...
what we got is technical consulting from SKIO.
Okay, so this isn't something you wrote, this is the part you wrote?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. But if you take the time to read, SKIO always, they're so polite, they say, we recommend that you ask, and it's like, we demand.
I just wanted to make sure I understood
so that is the
what came
basis
first,
of my
the chicken
letter.
or the egg.
Plus my own experience in knowing what's in the settlement agreement and in the permit.
Okay.
Basically, this doesn't have a lot to do with Sheffield. This is basically has to do with the communities that are directly impacted by the rail transportation and the trucking.
We are downstream, and that has been my whole issue of being involved in this. We are downstream. They don't do it right. They have a spill. It affects us. It affects our economy. It affects our Berkshire area. And we have been involved with those other communities since the get-go. So I think it's
But basically,
important
this
that
is just for support for the other communities. mainly.
Well, I think it's keeping GE on their toes to go with what they agreed with. Okay, I mean, I have a lot of time invested in this, and you all have been so supportive, whoever's been on this board. Rhonda's put time into this. We need to stand with our member communities, and we need to make sure that whatever GE does in terms of truck traffic, the rest of it, it could affect us. They're not going to be trucks streaming through here, but they're going to be going through Great Barrington, they're going to be going through Lee. If they have a problem, if they have a spill, our fire department could be called.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
Okay?
agree.
So we're tangential, but we're very much involved, is my view.
So we will put this on our next...
I just have one
Go
follow-up
ahead.
question. Have you talked with the other towns? Are they also doing the same type of letters, or are we?
Since the Rest River Municipal Committee dissolved, it's been a little hard to be in touch with everybody, but my understanding is that every one of the other towns got this, including Pittsfield. And also West Stockbridge is now beginning to weigh in because stuff is going to be going through West Stockbridge. We would have done this as a municipal committee until we dissolved. But if you want me to find out for Thursday, I cannot believe that they are not doing something. You want me to find out for Thursday?
I think that would be helpful because
I'll find out.
It can't be just Sheffield that's going to
Yeah.
send a letter like this.
And I've always believed we need to look out for ourselves,
Yes.
So I'll find out what the other towns are doing, okay?
So we will put this on the agenda for our next meeting and
Yep.
come up with a discussion and decision. Okay, discussion, possible action regarding extension for community compact grant, electronic records.
Okay.
This I
I
did
think
have
this is
time
my
to read.
last one.
This I did have time to read.
This is just basically, as you know from looking at my mess over here, it's taken a lot of time to get some of these records scanned and then verify that they actually have been scanned. So this was an 18-month grant, and I know it didn't get started for a while because it takes all the paperwork to get done, but I am concerned that we are not going to have enough time, and if that's the case, then we'll have to deal with it. But I'm asking us to consider two things. One, I'm asking for a 6 to 12-month extension on the grant completion date. If we can get that, it'll keep us from having to apply again. And I think the community compact under the IT grant put a lot of money into records across many communities, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're hearing this from other people. The other thing is we're finding with the Board of Health and also with the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and when they do meet the ZBA, that we just can't stack documents, particularly the Board of Health, for 6 months or even a quarter until they take them and they scan them. And we have some issues we need to work out, so I'm a little, at this moment, a little on that. So Nicole, who's my partner in this and are working with Rhonda, feel that we'd like to ask for an oversized document scanner that would allow us to do all of the blueprints and septic plans and those things. Sometimes those things are pretty big and they don't submit electronic copies always. We're moving toward requesting more of that, but we'd like to see if they would allow us to use grant funds to buy a scanner. At the present time, no hardware was thought of when I wrote the grant and we all approved it. So that's what this is about.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the letter as written with Rhonda having permission to sign it, or our chairman, I don't care who signs it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Discussion action regarding one-day alcohol permit. And there are several days listed, and a request for a additional snow day possible for 1 day.
So these are all from Dewey Hall?
Correct. So would somebody like to make a
I'll make a motion that we approve 1-day beer and wine license alcohol license for Dewey Memorial Hall on February 10th, February 14th, March 13th, March 15th, April 10th, April 26th, May 8th, June 12th, September 11th, October 9th, November 13th, and December 11th, with a possible snow date of February 11th, should there be snow on February 10th.
Second.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, board member items.
None. Thank you.
None. Nadine?
I would like to thank Kevin Joyce for this beautiful job painting this room. What a huge difference. I mean, the room just looks really classy.
And he's not finished.
I know he's not, but it just looks so good.
It's completed enough to get the idea.
To really appreciate the work that's gone into this.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's
Yes.
done a very great
yeah,
job.
it's
here.
fantastic.
Rhonda?
I just have one thing. So the next regularly scheduled select board meeting would normally take place on Monday, February 5th, but we have changed that to Wednesday, February 7th at 7 o'clock.
Pay attention.
They'll get an email.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Very good. So we will start with public comments.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Phyllis Webb, 205 Root Lane. Renee, thanks for introducing the CPA initiative. I think it would be great to bring this to our town and give everybody the opportunity to vote on it. It's something that I think is long overdue for Sheffield. So I'd just like to give a yay on that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Pat?
Right, Pat Levine, 261 East Main Street. The work that Renee has put in on this is terrific, and I'm wondering if the document that she shared, or plural documents she shared, are available to the public. And some of us would like to be able to go out and proselytize some of these ideas, and that kind of factual information, it'd be terrific.
Well, I can certainly make these available. It's a packet like this. I don't,
It's a lot of
we want to put it on the website, but I can come in tomorrow and make some copies and put them in the town administrator's office. I would myself suggest that before people get really going on this, that the board have an opportunity, and public input is always good on this, to make that decision, because I think what I have used to provide information to the select board may not always be best for voters, in the sense that plunk of a packet isn't going to do
have,
it.
as Renee had, I'm sorry, Nadine had said.
Happens all the time.
Being able to have some facts at hand and being sure that.
Yes,
I
yes.
understand.
What I personally would like to do is, if the board votes to put this on the warrant, to put it on the ballot, I would suggest that there be an informal committee put together so that everybody is on the same page, giving the same information. Nadine summarized what it would cost her perfectly. What gets people crazy is they think it's on their property taxes, not, on their assessed value of their property, not on their property tax. So the CPA Coalition, who has helped a lot of towns through this process, is very willing to help. So I think we ought to let the select board make their decision, and then I would like to, to work with people on this, so that we're all on the same page.
Terrific, thank you.
But in the meantime, I'll come in tomorrow and make some packets, and maybe just put them out here, so you don't even have to bother either Jill or Rhonda. Does that work?
That's fine.
Great, okay.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi,
Good
Susan.
evening.
Nice to see you all. I'm Susan Pittman, 395 Salisbury Road, and I'm just here to, again, ask that CPA is on the warrant. It's really a great idea, and I love the idea that there's so many exemptions. It really does protect people. Thank you.
Carolyn Fulton, 197 Main. Thank you very much for that great explanation of CPA, and I'm here too to hope it's on the warrant. So that's all the time I need to take of yours. Thank you.
Getting a little redundant here. 395 Salisbury Road, Ted Pittman. I'm here to support the CPA going on the docket.
Thank you.
Anybody not supporting the CPA?
Don't ask.
Oh, that's right, you. Sorry, Bob.
I think there's a difference between putting it on the warrant and how you vote.
Yep.
That's, with the clickers, that's always a secret procedure, but I think everybody that I've heard is for taking that first step and seeing if the voters want to up it or down it.
Any further public comment?
I'm John Mullin, 1499 Boardman Street. I've had to contact Smitty Pignatelli's office, Inspector General, Attorney General, State Ethics Commission, Governor Healy, and Office of Professional Responsibility. This pertains to an ongoing issue regarding Joe Wilkerson excavating at 1551 and son Kevin at 1515 Boardman Street. The current situation is that on December 7th, 2022, the Zoning Board of Appeals overturned Paul Green's, the enforcement officer's, decision about illegal activities on 1515 Boardman Street and determined that the commercial uses must cease on December 1st, 2023. Okay, it's now January 16th, over a year, and there's still illegal activities continuing. And in fact, throughout this time, they have increased. This activity requires a special permit through the planning board. I don't know why Paul Green does not act on this. He should have at least done a site view and he should have more than likely taken pictures. In my opinion, he's no way at all impartial, because this is totally not right. My original complaint that I started out with on this whole issue, he stated that it would appear by your complaint that the non-conforming but legal use, and this is on the 1551 property, has been continually expanding over the years, and that expansion is the basis of your complaint. All legal businesses have a right to grow. As a non-conforming legal use, the question is how much expansion should be allowed for Wilkerson Excavating? It is my decision that the scope of the business as it exists today is at its maximum and can remain as is as long as there is no more expansion without permission from the Sheffield Planning Board. All right, 1515 is expansion if he's expanding onto that property. To my knowledge, and I've read the zoning bylaw book, the expansion of a non-conforming pre-existing business is determined by the zoning bylaws. Maybe a business in a biz district is allowed to expand as much as it wants. You know, I mean, to the point where he allowed for a salt shed to be put on 1551, and then an addition put onto that salt shed. So, you know, in my opinion, Paul Green is not following the guidelines here. My last complaint about the 1515 property cost me 2 more hearings. I've been to 8 zoning board hearings. Paul Green never attended one of those hearings to defend his decisions. And I would think if anybody, that's who should be there. He never addressed all issues on my original complaint. And Eric Carlson is the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And in my opinion, he should have recused himself due to conflict. He spoke to me about the issue before we had the hearings. He's not supposed to speak to either party. He too has a non-conforming pre-existing business in a rural district. He sells propane to Joe and Darlene Wilkerson, Kevin Wilkerson, and Todd Wilkerson. He did a disclosure, but just because you do a disclosure does not mean you are impartial. By no means. In fact, Eric denied my request for a vehicle counter which would have proven extensive traffic and expansion on Boardman Street. Those hearings were held in total chaos. You'd have thought you were in a bar room. And he allowed a mob to control the situation.
Well, I would like to interject on that because I was at that hearing and I don't feel it was that far out of hand. There was some spirited hearings. The last ZBA.
The last one?
Hearing, yes.
Oh, the last one was closed to everybody. During the first or second hearing, I'm speaking and Jen Wilkerson stands up and calls me a liar. Eric did nothing at all about that situation. There were people harassing me and whatnot. Okay? There was no tangible evidence of retail prior to 1994. Nothing tangible was given. There were no slips. Proof is what's required for this. They put a common driveway between 1515 and 1551, and the zoning board determined that the residential driveway was not being used due to testimony. Well, I have pictures on my phone that show trucks entering and exiting that property with trailers, with equipment on them. I obtained a copy of the minutes from the hearings because they were those minutes were recorded. They were not at all accurate. Some of my statements were not even in there. They had the wrong people saying certain things. Catherine Miller and Pat Levine were the only two impartial parties at that hearing. This complaint originally started in 2000 when Donnie Tirico was the enforcement officer.
I'm going to cut off your comment because you're limited to 3 minutes.
Well, then I'll just ask one question. I purchased my house in 1997 and it was peaceful and quiet. So if it's not due to retail business or extensive expansion after that time, why is there excessive traffic, continuous equipment noise, backup beepers, slapping at tailgates, and every other horrible noise that goes along with an excavation business? Nobody can answer that question for me.
So, what I would like to see, because I know there was a ZBA hearing on that, it went on I did not attend the meetings, but it went on. I know we had legal counsel and a lot of issues. If you have a complaint, which obviously you do, it's very difficult for this board to try to collect your comments in a reasonable fashion. I would like to see your comments in writing, okay? I think that's the only way that at least I, as a member of this board, could deal with your comments, okay? I think that ZBA hearing was, what, a year plus ago? I'm just trying to put it in my mind. I remember it vividly, but it's been a while. And if there was something that was supposed to have happened on December 1st, 23, like a month and 45 days ago, then I think that is reasonable to request of this board, but to look into. But if you would take the time and put this into a letter.
I certainly will.
Okay, that would allow us to deal with it, because I can't.
I certainly will, but in the meantime, I believe there should be a cease and desist order put on this and a fine beginning from December 1st until the day it's cleaned up.
If you will present us with your information, we will investigate and make sure everything that the ZBA requested was followed up on.
Okay.
And take it from there. Thank you.
And you can either drop your letter off in the town administrator's office or just mail it. But the sooner we receive it, the sooner it will be dealt with.
Okay. Any other public comment? Sorry.
Hi, Sari Hoy, 60 Main Street. I heard recently that the Select Board had earmarked $100,000 for housing from ARPA funds, and I am curious if someone could explain what the process would be for accessing, applying for and receiving that money. Does it have to go to town meeting to be approved, or is it something that's approved?
We did not set up a grant process. We just set aside $100,000 for housing should something develop before we were able to utilize all of the money. There's no grant application for it. It was just in our general discussion that we would set $100,000 into.
Did we actually vote on that? I don't
believe so.
I don't think we did.
Rhonda, do you recall?
I'll have to look back at the minutes.
Yeah,
I know we talked about it, and I know
In
when.
general, I thought we did talk about it and
Yeah.
set certain amounts possibly,
Yeah.
but it was nothing.
So maybe
focused
just
or
in a
the-
general
Right.
conversation.
Yeah, I know that was the
believe so.
number, I think, if I remember correctly, it was the number one concern of people who attended 2 public hearings and said how they would like the money to be spent. Okay, but also, is the Housing Commission looking to access that money?
Well, we might be. I
Well,
mean,
because-
so that's what my question is. It's really about if suddenly something came up and we needed to access, say, access some money for a down payment, a deposit, or
Sarah,
something like that,
housing-
how would we go about?
The Housing
asking?
Commission cannot access that
Right.
money
No.
in the sense that your charter, if I remember it correctly, is to present the select board
Yes,
with
it
a
is.
plan. And we had the housing production plan, and there were things that came out for the planning board to work on and
Yes.
for the Housing Commission to work on.
No, you're
And we
right.
have not received anything from the Housing Commission, though we have received things from the planning board. So, that money would have to come through, if it's ARPA, it would have to come through the select board and be earmarked by the end of this year and spent by the end of '26. Okay.
As I tried to explain to you over the weekend,
Yeah.
the Housing Commission has no authority to
No.
purchase a property.
No, no.
And neither does the Board of Selectmen.
That's not what I'm asking. Okay, that's not
Okay,
what I'm
I'm
asking.
sorry.
If Construct was going to purchase something, or looking into purchasing something for housing, and requested some input from the town, how would they go about applying for anything? But I was thinking if there were money earmarked from ARPA, that would probably be the place that they would be thinking about asking for it. So how would they go about doing
I
it?
think personally, the first thing they should do is come to the select board in a televised meeting and let people know what's going on.
So I'm asking because often these things happen in a very, very short period of time. Something comes up for auction, there isn't a meeting in between knowing that it comes up for auction and it comes up for auction and it's auctioned. So the question is there any, that's why I was asking what the process is, because right now it seems like it would take time, and we don't always have that time.
Welcome to municipal government, my
Yes,
friend.
but I am just confirming that that's where we stand
Let us
with it.
step back for a moment. The Housing Commission has the charge to present a plan for housing. So if you've been working with Construct and you are talking with them about doing something, the select board should know about that plan.
Sure.
Okay?
Of course.
I mean, don't wait till the last minute and surprise. I mean, if you have certain elements of your housing plan that you have developed, like one of the elements was to talk to the nonprofits, of which Construct is one.
Yes.
Okay? So if you have done that and you have something that you need to bring to the public and to the select board, that should be coming now rather than later.
Yes,
So I would suggest timeliness on that.
yes.
And part of that discussion could be, as we all know, things come up and you don't want to mess around because as soon as you get it out to the public, someone else can scoop it up.
Yes.
I mean, they've had trouble with that in Great Barrington. So we haven't heard anything from the Housing Commission.
No.
Period.
Thank you for finishing the
I
sentence, because
understand.
that I was, the housing production plan, of course we heard, because
Yeah.
you all were involved in that deeply. But we haven't heard anything from the Housing Commission that I can remember, period.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
So
But you answered my question.
I would get your plans forward.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I agree. I just wanted to see if I could get what you just told me about the process, and thank you.
Yeah, and then I think the question that Sari brings up is at some point, we should set aside that money.
Well, and I'm not sure that we didn't, so we need to look
We
back
need
on
to
that.
validate that.
Because I
Yes.
remember a conversation, but I don't
Yes.
know that we actually
Yeah.
did or didn't
And
do it.
I know, Sari, just as an aside, that I know you've been working with CJ Hawes, and CJ is talking, we've been talking about what's the next grant that we can get for the Housing Commission. Yes. Okay, they haven't been announced yet.
Okay.
But that needs to be pursued because there's a ton of money out there.
Yeah.
And I'm more than willing to start working
So
for it. We
similar-
just have to have
Is it similar to the one that you just approved for the planning board, or is it a different grant?
No, he's helping you with a different grant. It's not a DLTA. He's doing the work with the Housing Commission that is not under a DLTA. It's under a planning grant that they got. which I think will come out in June. So that discussion should be, but again, if we know what the plan is, we can start looking for money.
Yep.
If we don't know the plan, we can't go get anything.
Okay, thank
Okay?
you.
Thanks for asking.
Kathy?
Kathy Orlando, Planning, Housing Commission. So there are a couple of things that, following up from the Housing Production Plan, which committee, which meeting chaired, the Housing Commission has been following up on a number of different elements, including starting to have those conversations with nonprofits, and also with the Attorney General's office, and invited the Select Board and other boards to come to a couple of different presentations. So we're working on gathering the information to be able to bring to the Select Board. And so I think what Sarah was bringing up here was when she heard that there was potentially these funds that were available, we wanted to get a better sense of what was the protocol around those, so that as we're looking at being able to put together, the information to bring in writing to the Select Board, we had a sense of what was already in place. The other piece is that a number of years ago, the Housing Commission actually had approached the Select Board about the possibility of utilizing the land across from the school where the town garage was possibly going to be going. Since that is no longer where the highway garage is going to go, one of the questions is that something that could potentially be utilized in working with nonprofit partners to be able to do some housing, because it is there right across from the school. The school does also have extra capacity in its treatment system, and the uses for like a duplex or a triplex or a quad or one house or two houses is very different in terms of impact on in an area of critical environmental concern than a highway garage.
This is a perfect start of a plan.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Where you actually come to the Board of Selectmen and say, we would like to take this piece of land and put three-family units or whatever, and this is our plan to tie it into the school and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Would the town be able to help us with the septic tie-in? Would you have to figure out what it is you need.
Yes.
And what that's going to cost and how that's going to be managed by the nonprofit.
Right.
What I tried to explain to Siri over the weekend is the town of Sheffield is not going to become a housing agent,
Right,
a
which
housing authority.
everybody knows, and
Right.
that's been clear since the Housing Commission was
Right.
formed and through the whole
So
process.
the role you have is to try to bring your nonprofits in
Right.
to show them something that may be a potential.
Exactly. So the reason that we're bringing this up now is because in the minutes from one of the Select Board meetings in the Sheffield Times, there was something about the possibility of doing something with that land across from the school. So since we didn't have, now that it wasn't going to be the highway garage, what was going to happen with it? So since we are still in the process of putting together, who might we work with, we wanted to kind of just be able to say, hey, this is something that, as before it became the possibility of being a highway garage, that has seemed like a good opportunity there. And would it be possible to be able to take a look at the materials, all the engineering and things that were done for the highway garage? Because that kind of assessment of the property could be very useful for a nonprofit, whether it's Habitat or Construct or a community land trust, to be able to know what the capacity there is, because whether you do a house or a duplex or whatever could very much be guided by what that engineering was. And since the town already had that done, is that something that could be available for the Housing Commission to be able to share with potential partners?
I think this is getting totally overthought.
It is.
Okay. A housing plan, to me, what I would be looking for is for Sheffield to get funding, we have to build X number of units. There's a number. I used to know it when you were doing...
9.
Is it 9?
It's 9.
I thought it was lower. Okay. We need to build X number of units to...
Sorry, am I right?
It's somewhere between 7 and 9.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's 9.
But there needs to be a number of units built to be able to access state money. That's the goal here, is to access state money, in my view, because we don't have the money. So our plan to build those 7 or 9 units, or whatever the magic number, is the following. We're looking at these parcels. We have talked to Construct or Community Development of Southern Berkshire. We're looking at this possible land. We're looking at this type of structure. Rough estimate, I mean, I personally do not want question by question by question. I'm looking for a plan.
And there was no engineering plan done for the highway,
There was no
right?
engineering.
There wasn't any, okay.
No.
It was
Yeah, so this
never
was,
that far advanced
No, they just told us it was going to cost us about $500,000
per acre
Per acre.
per acre.
To prepare the land
To
for the
prepare the
building.
land.
for the site.
all right, so this just came up because since that had been in one of the minutes, we'll go back, and if that wasn't the case, that's, fine. We just wanted to make sure that if there was some thought about doing something with that land, that to let the select board know that the prior communication from the Housing Commission, that property could potentially be a good site for some housing, given its location so close to the school in that neighborhood, and with the other capacities there, we wanted to let you know that that was something we're thinking.
Again, my thinking, and I may be alone on this, is I'd like the overarching plan. I would prefer not to have, we have picked this site and this site and this site. There's a number of things you could potentially get those units by buying certain properties, starting from scratch on certain other properties, using it through the Attorney General's receivership program, okay? But I think almost sometimes what I hear is that you may be going so deep that you're not putting together we need to do this and this and this. Here is our first approach to this. Let's figure out. I mean, it's been a year since the housing production plan was approved. And again, we've heard a lot from the planning board, but we haven't heard anything from the Housing Commission. So I'm not sure what's going on.
So that's why we wanted to be able to come. We misunderstood what we had read in the minutes, and we just wanted to make sure that an opportunity that seemed like it could be there didn't go away. Since that doesn't seem to be an issue, that's great to hear, and we will continue to reach out to the nonprofits to be able to craft, as you're talking about, some of this information. We just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose an opportunity if that was possible, if it was going to happen.
Well, there's no hold on the land, Kathy,
Well, so that's what I guess then why I'm standing here right now is to say, if that could be a great site, talking with different nonprofits, towns having land that they own can be a fantastic way to start.
Towns having land that they own is great if the town has a housing authority.
Or a nonprofit to work with.
Or a
it can be deeded over. But
Right, a
if I
nonprofit
remember
to take
correctly,
care of.
we don't
Yeah,
have
exactly.
a lot of useful land.
Right.
And, the board has been, I'm not sure if the board or just Rhonda and I have been discussing, but every year the town gives us the right to sell land that we're not using and put it back on the market. And maybe that is something that we need to do and put that money into a housing account. But again, the Sheffield Times, if you read it in the Sheffield Times, the minutes are condensed. I think they do a very good job. But the minutes are on the website for every single board, for every single meeting, usually. So sometimes it's best to read the full minutes rather than a condensed
And
version.
that's great, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful to hear that there isn't something in the works right now, so we still have some time to continue to work with the nonprofits to be able to put together some proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Seeing none,
I would make a motion that we go into executive session and not return to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Such discussion, if it were held in the open, may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. And that's exactly what Kathy was talking about. Okay? So we have it,
Second.
we have
And
it right here.
we won't be returning.
No, I said, and we would
Did you
not
say?
return to
Okay.
open session.
We need to do roll call vote on that.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Nadine?
Nadine Hover, aye.
Renee Wood, aye.
Bob Kilmer, aye. This meeting is closed.